Hey guys, Loco here. The offseason has finally ended. We finally know all 50 slots for LCS. And LEC, I think there's like one or two moves that aren't known. But yeah, offseason has pretty much ended. So there were a lot of great moves, but there were also some bad moves. So let's do my favorite thing and make a list. Let's talk about some of the worst moves made this year in the LCS. The criteria for judging the moves will be the skill of the player involved, that's going to be one of the most important, but also the public details of the deal outside of the player's skill, like the salary, if the player is an import, other available players, etc. So for number 5, we actually have a tie in Ryoma and Eika, respectively, for 100 Thieves and Immortals mid lane. The reviews on these players are not the hottest from speaking to Oceanic casters, from speaking to the French casters, and also they don't have the hottest reviews of like the players that played against them. And while these players are relatively cheap compared to the other options, mid lane is not the role to go budget in. We've seen time and time again what happens to a team when they don't have a strong mid. They will struggle. Does anyone remember the 2019 100 Thieves roster with Hooni or Soligo in the mid lane? Or 2019 SK Gaming with Pyrian? Or the 2017 TL roster with Golden Glue, who eventually got subbed out for Piglet mid? When you pick up a player, you're doing one of the two things. You're trying to develop the player to win a championship in the future, or 2, you have a strong roster and you need the final few pieces to round it out and win a championship now. For both 100 Thieves and Immortals, I don't think they're in like a championship mode, so it's not the case 2. And in the case of case 1, the future for Eika and Ryoma needs to be that they're able to compete with top tier mid lanes in the region like Jensen or Bjergsen. While it is possible, I don't think it's very likely. Also, ultimately, the biggest problem with all this is there were other import mid lanes that were available that these teams decided not to pick up. I mean, one, there's Kuro. I'm sure he was way more expensive than Eika or Ryoma, and also he might not be maybe a long-term move. And the English thing is definitely going to be a problem. And there's Leader, someone that a lot of people had very hyped up. I know the rumor was that people didn't even get a chance to speak to Leader, but that's not it. Misfits, even though they released Leader way too late in the offseason, Leader was allowed to speak to teams, so I'm sure 100 Thieves and Immortals, the teams that needed to reach out, at least spoke to Leader to a certain degree. And then the other big one is Yuka. He's currently a free agent, maybe he's on a Korean team, but yeah, Yuka's someone relatively young who would be willing to learn English, and I think is a better bet for the future than Ryoma or Eika. There are things that Ryoma and Eika will do better than the imports we just listed though. They will speak English better, they will be better teammates from what I heard of both Ryoma and Eika. They are someone that's very humble, that's willing to put in the work, and maybe even work harder, especially in Ryoma's case, because Oceania as a region is dying. Like Riot is cutting stipends for the player salaries, and if you're an Oceanic mid lane player, or if you're an Oceanic player in general, you have no future if you stay in Oath. The only future is to import to one of the bigger major regions, and yeah, you're probably not going to get a shot in Europe, but in NA, there's been a newfound love for minor region imports. So yeah, Ryoma will work hard, because for him, he has no future. He has no, like, a backup plan. Like, he cannot go back to Oath. Like, that is not a viable path for pro. So he has to make it work in North America. Now, let's move on to number 4. Golden Glue as GGS mid lane. First of all, I love you, Grayson, and I cherish our friendship, and you're a great person. Second of all, this was an absolute dogshit move from Golden Guardians. There's better mid lanes in NA available in Pobelter or Damonte, and also all the previous reasons I gave against Eika and Ryoma still applies here to Golden Guardians picking up Golden Glue, a relatively weak mid lane. But the weirdest thing for all this is this move was pretty much done like a forever ago. From my understanding, GGS was set on Golden Glue really early, which is surprising to me. Did they know Pobelter was going to be available? Did they know about the other mid lanes that might be available? And if they did they still choose Golden Glue over Pobelter or the other potential mid? And is the meme of Golden Guardian, Grayson, Gregory, Golden Glue, Gilmer strong enough to make a bad roster move come into fruition? Also, is Golden Glue related to anyone on Golden Guardians? I don't know how the teams just do not learn from the past mistakes of others, but a weak mid lane will equal a weak team, and it's just gonna make your job so much harder. Please get it through your head. Now, in number 3, we have Hooni for Dignitas top lane. Hooni was a huge part of why CG was able to make Worlds. The team was based around Hooni and Rift Herald, but secretly Cody and Vulcan were better players in my opinion. Also, Hooni has one of the strongest brands in LCS. And worldwide too, he played in LCK and won a title, he played in Europe, won a title. LCS is actually the only region he has played in where he hasn't won a title. This is still an absolute dog shit move. The 2.3 mil for 2 years guaranteed for Hooni is outrageous. That kind of money should be reserved for franchise changing players. Bjergsen, Double Lip, Cap, Perked, like this is what the money should be saved for. If all the players were released from their teams and we had like a free agent draft, Hooni would not even make top 5 in LCS. Number 1 would probably go to Double Lift, number 2 to Bjergsen, number 3 Jensen, number 4 Svenskeren, number 5 Core JJ, probably like 6 Xmitty. Like Hooni's probably somewhere like 8 or 9 or maybe even beyond 10. Also, most importantly, Hooni eats up an import slot. And Hooni also isn't very flexible. What happens if the meta ever shifts back to tank top lane? Have you guys seen Hooni tank? Like Hooni plays Lucian top. He does not play stuff like Maokai, Sion. These are not Hooni champions. In all this though, most importantly, allegedly Hooni made this deal happen without an agent. My god, he was able to land that monster contract and it was public. Oh my god, Dignitas, I don't know what the hell you're doing. This is a roster move that's going to haunt Dignitas for years to come. In year 2, when they're paying Hooni that guaranteed salary, and if his skill level ever dipped again, my goodness. In number 2, we have Zizuke in mid lane. EG as a brand is all about winning. Look at their Dota 2 team, winning TI. Look at their CSGO team, winning a championship. And they want to carry over the same kind of branding and operating strategy to League of Legends and LCS. And they started with buying out 4 of C9's players. Svenskeren, Zeyzal, Kumo, Deathly, like great moves to start a franchise. Then, despite their robust network of strategic assets that they own or have contractual access to, which gives them greater flexibility and speed to reliably deliver widespread logistical solutions, they ended up with Zizuke in mid lane. It wasn't their first choice, and definitely not the worst roster move on paper. It just looked really bad because of the possible alternative and the community-driven hype for EG Chobi. According to ESPN, EG was pretty close to landing Chobi, but ultimately weren't able to. Also, just look at the alternative. They had Deathly, so they could have started him and imported 2 solo lanes. Like Kuro Duke were free agents. Maybe they could have done something like Crown Someday with buyouts since they were willing to spend so much for Chobi. Props to EG for reaching for the stars, but sometimes you need a better escape plan. Now, let's go to our number 1 worst LCS off-season roster move of 2020. Keith as Golden Guardian support. What in the actual fuck? How? What the fuck? Like, how does this happen? So, in the Golden Guardians video, the rationale for this move was FBI likes playing lane aggressively, we couldn't land Hakuo, we want a player with hands. Keith, you have hands. By hands, I'm guessing they mean mechanic. I'm just speechless. Currently, yes, mechanics are very important for a support player, but traits like leadership, game knowledge is still the more important assets. To make plays on the map, you need to be able to spot it out before, communicate it to your team, know all the moving parts involved, and lead your team to making that play. I love you, Keith, but this ain't it, fam. You're not that player. Your strengths are not leadership or game knowledge. This was the most confusing off-season move so far, and Golden Guardians has 2 of my worst top 5 LCS off-season roster moves, so yeah, we'll see how it pans out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm still gonna try to do 1 video a day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And remember, I'm not crazy, I'm just loco. Bye!